At Arizona State University, we've made online education better, smarter, and more personalized so you can go further in your aspiring field.
I decided to pursue medicine once I realized that ASU did have the online program for biological sciences. You're still required to learn the same curriculum. You're still being tested on the same content that anyone would be tested on in person. The comprehensiveness of the program prepared me so well for medical school.
Explore over 300 programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.
KFI, Mo Kelly. It's Later with Mo Kelly. We're live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app and also YouTube. I just want you to take a look at the YouTube screen. If you want to advertise on this show, be a part of the YouTube feed and have your business featured, just reach out to us at laterwithmokelly@gmail.com. Maybe you want to have your business highlighted, laterwithmokelly@gmail.com. That's how you can do that. And if you don't remember that, we'll be posting that again later in the show. I cannot get used to this new tipping phenomenon, and I call it a phenomenon. It's nice, though, when I open up the Wall Street Journal. Well, I don't open it up anymore, but now I log on to the website. It's nice, though, to be able to log on to the Wall Street Journal and find that I'm not alone in this. Wall Street Journal had a poll, and more than 1,000 readers responded, showing that Americans, inclusive of me, are tipping less than they have in years. Now, I wouldn't say I tip less than before. I am less tolerant of the tipping craze than ever before. According to the Wall Street Journal, some vented over being asked to tip for transactions as basic as fetching bottled water from a cooler. They're not wrong. Others balked at service charges creeping into the fine print of their restaurant checks. And that's a problem, too. And several wished America would follow other countries and include service in meal prices. There are a number of things to unpack there. Tipping, at least how the classical conception is, specifically for the worker, the server, the person who is bringing you your food and tending to you as a patron. Restaurants, especially during the pandemic and post-pandemic, got into what I would call this habit of adding these service fees. Sometimes they were explicit. They were at the bottom of the menu or at the bottom of your bill. Sometimes they weren't there at all. And if you weren't paying attention, you basically were getting robbed on a small level. And there's been some legislation to push back against that here in California. But it's not all the same thing. And there is the argument that, hey, why don't you pay your workers a living wage? Do not leave it to me, the customer, to close the gap or somehow bridge that gap because you as an owner are too cheap. And restaurant owners will say, hey, I don't have those types of margins. Okay, fine. But it's not then incumbent upon me. I would rather you just put it into the price of the meal, and then I know exactly what I'm dealing with, as opposed to being tip shamed. If I do eat out, almost all the time now, when I get that bill, it starts at 18%. Starts. That's the expectation. And that's not assuming that there's some sort of gratuity already put in. There are a couple of places I went, I'm not going to call them by name, I'm really not, which had an 18% gratuity already calculated, and then they had an extra line for a tip. What's the point having the mandatory gratuity if you're also going to ask for a tip?
They're hoping you don't pay attention.
Well, that's what it comes down to.
Yeah. The only one that makes sense is when you have like a group of like 14 people. I understand that. But what you're talking about is just ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't like, for example, there's this nice place I go to at the Del Amo Mall in Torrance. And I'm going to call it out by name because they're semi-conscious of it. Sarku is a Japanese restaurant in the food court. Love their chicken teriyaki. Absolutely love it. But they also are guilty of turning around the screen. You know, you make your order, I get my chicken teriyaki or I get my sushi, and then they say, okay, this screen's going to ask you a question or two.
Are you talking about the screen of shame?
The screen of shame. Yes. They look away.
And they hang their head down, too.
Yeah.
Like,
they know. They know. And I'm not going to blame the person who's behind the counter because I'm quite sure he or she is being, they're doing as they're told.
That's because that's like when people get mad at the checkers at like a Vaughn's or something for the price of fruit. It's like they didn't choose that.
Right. And the distinction I'm going to make is that's different from going to a fast food place and some employee has taken it upon him or herself to put out a tip jar because they think they deserve a tip, as opposed to an establishment where they're providing a service and they're also then offer you the chance to give a tip. And that's obviously coming from the owner, not someone who's working the register.
Well, you can ignore the tip jar a lot easier than you can the screen of shame.
I'm getting good at it. I'm getting real good at it. Now, I used to have a rule that if I were to get something to go, I was adamant. No. All you did was hand me my food in a bag.
Okay, I need to know something here because I've been struggling with this. What is the appropriate tip to pick up an order when somebody hands you a bag? Like say, there's a place we go pretty often, and I'm not going to call them out because I don't know all the particulars. But what is it worth to say, "Oh, here you go," and pick up a bag and hand it to you, or just point to the bag and say your bag's right there? Let's say your order is like $30. What do you tip? Nothing? Do you tip 10%? Do you tip? You certainly don't tip 20% because that's what you would be tipping for somebody who served you at a table.
Right. It's a great question. I've wrestled with it for years. This is my rule for me and me only. Prior to the pandemic, I did not tip for to-go orders. During and since the pandemic, I tipped for to-go orders. Not because I felt that person or establishment earned it. It's just because I'm basically being tip shamed. So that's the only reason I really do it, because I can't intellectually justify a tip when there's no service. Well, you're just providing food.
They remember when you stiff them too.
Right.
As a former bartender, I have a crystal clear 4K memory of everybody who stiffed me on tips when I served them drinks.
And I don't think the younger generation understands these distinctions. It's just a matter of, this person doesn't tip. And there are other things that I worry about. And let me just be very, very honest here. I do worry about the stereotype of black people supposedly not tipping. And I don't want to add to that stereotype. And also, I'm a semi-public figure. I was talking about being in Gaetano's last week, having a dinner, not even thinking about anything work-related, minding my business. In the way that Vanessa and Alfredo may have recognized me, I'm sure a bartender or someone else may recognize me. Maybe not say anything, but I don't want to be that guy that they think of as not being a tipper. So I do tip whether I agree with it or not. I don't like the shaming part of it from a society sense, but I'm going to tip. You're not going to see anything which is going to show with Mo Kelly not having tipped.
Yeah, you don't want people whispering, "Oh yeah, that KFI guy, he's a real tight ass."
Yeah.
Pass the word.
Yeah, no, I don't want that. I don't want that because I see too many stories where they do crucify folks for not tipping.
I have heard of celebrities that, like, not necessarily A-list, but they're pretty high up there, and they'll be like, "Yeah, I don't want to be known as the guy or the girl who doesn't tip." So they make sure to do it.
Yeah, and I'm not the person who's going to write out some $500 tip because I'm just trying to,
Yeah, right.
All right, what about if you pick up food from a food truck? They make it there, they hand it to you through the window. What do you leave them? You probably leave nothing.
It depends, because the food trucks now are so sophisticated, they do have that screen of shame.
Yes, they
do. Not. So it depends. Now, if it's a cash-based food truck, they might have the change of whatever that last dollar is.
Oh, well, okay. I always pay by card, and they're a little feistier. They'll lock eyes with you like you're in the yard at prison.
It depends.
They'll
am I going to use that food truck again, or is it just a chance meeting?
Yeah, you're going to use it again, and you're running the risk that they're going to give you the special if they see that you've stiffed them.
And it doesn't help that they look down on you, so they're like literally lording over you.
Yes, all of that matters, but. The whole tipping culture has changed where it's become an expectation as opposed to something to work for or aspire to and earn. I always tell people, if I don't tip you, that means you've done something less. I have to be able to hold something back for less than exemplary service. I have to be able to say that was less than the standard. It was substandard.
What does somebody have to do for you to play hardball like that?
It would have to be something overtly disrespectful. I'll give you a perfect example. I went to a restaurant, and I'll tell you off air, and I'm with my wife, and we're standing in, I'll say like the foyer, you're waiting to be seated. Mm-hmm. Okay. It's a restaurant, right? People come to the register and go. Come and go. We're just standing there. And I'm waiting. Is someone going to greet us? Is someone going to seat us? And then finally a woman came to the front and said, hi, can we help you? Yeah, you can. It's a damn restaurant. What do you think we're here for? How about giving us a freaking seat? At this point, my wife puts her hand on my shoulder because she sees I'm getting ready to go there.
What would there consist of?
Oh, I'm probably making a scene and walking out. Because at that point in my mind, I'm justified in my response. Uh-huh. They've earned that verbal ass whooping.
So you're going to sit there through the whole meal now, knowing that you're not going to tip them at the end.
Absolutely.
I'm not sure I like that.
Oh, but for me, I have to be able to retain some level of control.
Petty Crocker.
Absolutely.
No, I told you I'm petty that way too. I remember somebody when I was a bartender in Indiana taking back the quarter change after he bought a beer. And to this day, I want to fly back to Indiana and give that person a humiliating beating.
Or maybe a Rahner.
Double Rahner.
It's Later with Mo Kelly. KFI AM 640 live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app and YouTube. And I'm looking at the YouTube chat. We're having tens of people more each segment join the show because they know the party is getting wild, especially in the chat. So join the party on YouTube at Mr. Mo Kelly. You'll see the live link. You'll see the dozens of people in the chat making all sorts of remarks. We have Carnisha managing the chat, telling all my business about what I'm doing in the studio right now. So you're laughing, Stephen, but it's true. It's true. So know that it's real what is going on. So when we come back, we're going to give you a Jack in the Box update and more, and the Rahner Report at the bottom of the hour.
You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.
KFI, Mo Kelly. It's Later with Mo Kelly on a fabulous Friday. We're live everywhere in the iHeartRadio app and YouTube. We are having more and more people join the YouTube chat. So, and according to Carnisha, who's managing it, there are about 4 or 5 different conversations going.
I was going to say, it's a heated,
right. They're getting into it, talking about tipping, talking about George Santos, the draft, Shedeur Sanders, all of that. There's a lot going on. It's almost like you're at a Starbucks of sorts, and you have the group of people there talking about this and another group of people talking about that, but they're all there for one reason, to drink their coffee, what have you. So it's a nice community hangout, I'm going to call it for right now. So go ahead and join us on YouTube. You can watch the show. You can participate in the chat, and you can also see the game coming up at the top of the hour. Name That Movie Cult Classic. There's no theme tonight, but there is a boatload of prizes that we're giving away. Well, not necessarily a boatload, more like a broom closet where, yeah. You can go ahead and cheer that. We got some more prizes. We got tote bags. We have KFI t-shirts. Got a Later with Mo Kelly t-shirt and some other stuff. We got mugs, Later with Mo Kelly mugs, all good stuff.
What color t-shirts?
They are white with the gold KFI emblem emblazoned across the heart area.
Too much good stuff.
George Santos would look terrific in one of those. Just keep going.
I could say something, but it would have been very, very inappropriate.
It's been implied.
Yeah, jailhouse humor. It can go either way.
Yes.
Jack in the Box. Jack in the Box, I actually do like and have liked, even though it's not the fast food of choice of a lot of people. And that maybe because there's a Jack in the Box close to my house growing up, I found myself going to Jack in the Box. In my mind, it was just as good, sometimes better than McDonald's. I did notice over the years that there were seemingly as many Jack in the Box locations as there were McDonald's. Now you think, why would they always be in the same location? Well, that's marketing. If one company's done the marketing as far as that being a good fast food location, you will see other comparable restaurants put a location right there as well. So you'll see McDonald's on one side of the street and Wendy's on another side, or maybe Jack in the Box. That's how it all works. But the point I'm trying to make is there were too many Jack in the Box locations, it seems, and they were expanding far too fast. In what has been described as a surprise move, Jack in the Box has announced this week it would be closing as many as 200 of its locations.
No, God, please, no!
But there's more bad news. They might even be selling Del Taco. And I remember they just bought Del Taco, I don't know, maybe 3-4 years ago. It seems that the company has more than $300 million in debt, and this is a way that they can get some more cash on hand and pay down that debt. And Jack in the Box has had a very up and down history. They had struggles in the late 1970s. They had the scandal or perceived scandal I was talking about with Mark Rahner in the first segment. If you're not old enough to remember, back in 1981, Jack in the Box was thought to be and accused of distributing burgers with horse and or kangaroo meat in it. It was part urban legend, part truth, because Jack in the Box did have to acknowledge that beef was sent to one of its locations and it contained horse meat in it. Jack in the Box maintained that it never actually made it to a real Jack in the Box location and served as food. Of course, I always assume they're not telling the truth. But that was back in 1981. And the reason why it was so believable, because back in 1981, Jack in the Box was owned by Ralston Purina Company, actual makers of pet food and users of kangaroo, horse meat, whatever else back then. So there was a distinct possibility that it was actually being served to the general public. That was 1981. And then from there, I don't know if you, I know, Stephan, you wouldn't remember this. You weren't born yet. But I think it was like in the late 1980s or so. They blew up Jack, because Jack in the Box used to be just a physical fixture. It's like a Jack in the Box. They did a whole ad campaign where they actually blew up, as in with explosives, Jack. Then that paved the way for their resurgence when they had the Jack that we all know, the funny commercials, the big ass head. And that I thought was doing well, but maybe Jack in the Box was expanding too fast. But there's one thing I really do like about Jack in the Box. They serve breakfast all day.
Yes.
It's one of the few places where I know I don't need to look at my watch. I don't need to look at the day.
You just
pull up.
Drive up. And
that's right.
Because sometimes, especially on the nights when you're, a little inebriated, I get the dinner and then I get the breakfast for the next day.
You do that too?
Yeah.
I get 2 meals at once.
Yeah. It's the best.
And if I'm coming home late, and there's some times when I'm leaving here, I haven't done it in a long time because I've changed my diet, but I would leave here, go home, on the way home, hit a Jack in the Box, get food for the night, then food for the morning.
Yes.
That's one thing I did appreciate. Don't laugh at me like that, Carnation. I did appreciate Jack in the Box because they had all day breakfast. McDonald's did it for a while, like during the pandemic, and then they pulled it back.
They just stopped. I don't know why.
Because they have a sense of propriety.
No. I look down on if you don't have all day breakfast. I should be able to eat whatever I want whenever I want. And that's breakfast. I don't care if it's 3 in the afternoon or 3 in the morning.
We live in a society.
No, we don't. No.
No, but see, the cool
thing
is,
rules.
It's just such a nice little treat for yourself when you wake up the next day.
And they have a pretty extensive breakfast.
Yeah, they do. Their burrito is actually pretty solid.
They got the burritos. They have all sorts of sandwiches. They got like a double sausage sandwich and breakfast croissant.
Making me hungry.
The French toast sticks. They have this breakfast platter with eggs.
Oh, yeah.
But after breakfast time? No.
No, what are you talking about?
Okay, wait. Have you tried the tacos at Jack in the Box?
No. I don't eat the actual stuff that they sell.
You don't get the tacos?
No, I don't eat actually like burgers from Jack in the Box. I only get breakfast food.
Oh, you only get breakfast?
Only. That's the only reason for me to go.
No, I get the dinner and then I'll get, like, to Mark's point, I don't have it that night. I have it the next morning. So I'll have it ready to go.
I get both. I'm going to eat at 2 in the morning. I'm going to eat at 11 in the morning.
Yeah, exactly.
We got to get to the Rahner Report, but I have this question for the chat on our YouTube. So go to at Mr. Mo Kelly on YouTube, get the live show, and you'll see the interactive chat. For the chat, do you eat breakfast for dinner?
No.
We know you don't.
The answer for our listeners is no.
I grew up on breakfast for dinner. That was always a treat. My father would make pancakes for dinner on a given night. And then I realized, my mother's working late, so that's about the only thing you could fix. So we had breakfast for dinner. Is it okay to eat breakfast for dinner? That's what we want to know from the chat. It's later with Mo Kelly, KFI AM 640. We have the Rahner Report coming up next on KFI and YouTube.
You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.
Now on Later with Mo Kelly, Mark talks about movies and TV, pontificates about pop culture. Rahner Report with Mark Rahner.
KFI, YouTube, Later with Mo Kelly, Mark Rahner, take it away.
The second and final season of Andor has hit Disney Plus, and I believe I saw ABC running at least the first episode. Open wide for some trailer.
I came with you to be part of something. The Empire cannot win. It's a different kind of mission. If it goes up in flames, it will burn very brightly.
But if I'm giving up everything, I want to win. We have to. We must stand together. We will be crushed.
Resistance is absurd.
It's a weapon. They're building a weapon. The monster will come for us all.
Revolution is not for the saying. You're right here, and you're ready to fight.
There's a future here for those who dare. Welcome to the rebellion.
So we got to talk about Andor Season 2, but no, up front, I don't absolutely love all Star Wars. I think maybe half of what's out there is watchable. And before the market was flooded with more Star Wars movies and shows and cartoons, it got by on sheer goodwill without a decent movie since 1980, which was The Empire Strikes Back. The prequels were awful. The 3 Abrams movies were awful. The Mandalorian and Rogue One were great fun. And nerds can debate this stuff instead of experiencing sexual intimacy all they want. But over and above all that, I don't love Star Wars because I like science fiction, and Star Wars infantilized science fiction from the minute it came out in 1977 and for decades afterwards. Something becomes a hit and everyone wants to replicate it. Star Wars brought everything to the level of what children would sit through, starting with noises and dogfights in space, Darth Vader being the most on-the-nose, snidely whiplash name-having villain ever, and the list goes on. And if you want to argue about Darth Vader, having a bad guy with that name is about as remedial as having a homewrecker character named Slutty McHorrington. But one of the good things about having a glut of Star Wars stuff to watch is that there's now a little something out there for everyone. And Andor, well, it's not and/or, part of the Conjunction Junction cartoon.
Conjunction Junction, what's their function?
I got and, but, and or, they'll get you pretty far.
My God, I love Jack Sheldon's voice.
Yes.
And, but, or, I mean, and, or, no, but. It's a smart show for people not completely stuck in their 10-year-old selves, and it's got a lot going on. Here's the deal. Rogue One came out 9 years ago, and it was a prequel to the first Star Wars movie about how the rebels got the plans to the Death Star that allowed Luke to blow it up by shooting it up the tailpipe, which itself is kind of like taking down an aircraft carrier with a piece of gum, but whatever. And Rogue One was based on a reference from Star Wars in the opening crawl. During the battle, rebel spies managed to steal secret plans to the Empire's ultimate weapon, the Death Star. That's in the crawl at the beginning. I refuse to call the first movie A New Hope, just like I refuse to call the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America. It's always going to be Star Wars. And even though I'm against the strip mining of every reference and turning it into its own movie, and I can rest my case with the awful Solo movie, Rogue One was a real shot in the arm. Lots of fun. Andor is a prequel to Rogue One, which was a prequel. It follows the rebel, Cassian Andor, who we know is going to die in Rogue One, as he becomes part of the rebellion. Diego Luna plays Andor, and despite the fact that the show's named Andor, he's just part of an ensemble of characters and storylines, and sometimes he's the least interesting thing about the show. Stellan Skarsgård plays a character named Luthen, who's a sort of a spy and spy handler. He's always been a heavyweight, and it's really cool to see somebody with his chops do a show like this. It's sort of like seeing Richard Burton pop up in an old Batman episode. And no, that didn't really happen.
Or Christopher Lee.
Sure, yeah. Listen to this clip from the first season when somebody Luthen is sending out on a mission has the nerve to ask him what he's sacrificed.
And what do you sacrifice?
Calm. Kindness, kinship. Love. I've given up all chance at inner peace. I made my mind a sunless space. I share my dreams with ghosts. I wake up every day to an equation I wrote 15 years ago from which there's only one conclusion. I'm damned for what I do. My anger, my ego, my unwillingness to yield, my eagerness to fight, they set me on a path from which there's no escape. I yearn to be a savior against injustice without contemplating the cost, and by the time I look down, there's no longer any ground beneath my feet. What is my sacrifice? I'm condemned to use the tools of my enemy to defeat them. I burn my decency for someone else's future. I burn my life to make a sunrise that I know I'll never see. Now, the ego that started this fight will never have a mirror or an audience or the light of gratitude. So what do I sacrifice? Everything!
Jesus, sir, this is a Wendy's drive-thru.
I just asked a basic question.
When I say Andor himself is sometimes the least interesting part of the show, he spends the first 2 episodes of this new season getting his ass captured and doing nothing. The intrigue is taking place elsewhere, particularly on a different planet where Mon Mothma, not a kaiju, is getting she's running her daughter's wedding and dealing with dangerous rebel finance stuff that could get her killed. And there's a scene of her getting so spooked by the danger she's in that she gets high as F and is dancing by herself at the wedding. Pretty inspired. Tony Gilroy is the creator and head writer of Andor, and he's one of those guys whose name means you watch whatever he's got out. Along with co-writing Rogue One, he wrote some of the Bourne movies, directed one of them, and also one of my favorite movies of this century, Michael Clayton from 2007. I've only seen the first 3 episodes that are available of Andor, but I'm in for the duration, and critics who have seen the whole season in advance have high praise for where things go. The elephant in the room that people are buzzing about is that this is Star Wars with some seriously edgier content, which includes the first Star Wars attempted rape of a character. At least I think it's the first. I never trusted Jar Jar, kind of a creep.
The ability to speak does not make you intelligent. Now get out of here.
No, miss.
That won't be necessary.
Oh, but it is.
Well done. And if there's more than that, if you've got the nerve to Google, but beware, okay? I'm not going to spoil any more than that by saying who or what or under what circumstances this happens, but it's appropriate. It fits with what we know about occupying empires in the real world. It fits with Russians in Ukraine. It fits with Nazis. We're always going to have the Ewoks, but this is more complex material about resistance against a tyrannical empire, how people become involved in it, the cost of it, and also how people within the empire are seduced by power and do things they know are evil. So I'm all in for Andor, and the rise of Skywalker can still suck it. One quick postscript here. You may not know the name Donald F. Glut, but he's best known for being a part of the Star Wars family as the author of the Empire Strikes Back novelization and a million other things, from Shazam and Land of the Lost on TV, X-Men, tons of comics. I don't know Don real well, but we've been at some signings together, conventions. We've talked earlier this month. Don Glut posted that he'd been the victim of identity theft and was totally cleaned out. He started a GoFundMe, and it's worth your time checking it out and deciding if you want to lend a hand. I believe Don's in his early 80s, which really isn't the ideal time to start from scratch. See what you think. You can read the details by searching for GoFundMe and support Donald F. Glut, G-L-U-T, in overcoming financial loss. That should be on your screen right now if you're watching online. Enigmatically titled, I know. I've been scammed before myself, and it sucks. These people can be quite clever, as clever as they are ruthless. A lot of us are struggling or preparing to struggle right now. The tariff recession seems pretty much guaranteed, and the student loan people will be paying me a visit to take out my kneecaps very soon. I know Don Glut will appreciate any help you feel like giving, and then sometime maybe we can have him on the show to talk about some of the cool stuff he's done, particularly the Spider-Man cartoon from the 80s. That's your Rahner report. Further deponent saith not, Mo.
I saith nothing.
Okay.
Mark, well done.
Perfect for achy, indecisive minds. KFI's cooling Info Gel quickly relieves ignorance and leaves a minty fresh scent.
KFI
And KOST HD2.
Los Angeles.